course, you're writing about characters from of all sorts of different nationalities, different cultures, different not different races. So when you're doing that, how do you get the feedback you need to make sure that you're representing everybody honestly and authentically, or as much as you can?
Well, so there's a bunch of ways, and I'd say that's the single most challenging part of writing the City Spies book for me. Not the research, not the spy stuff. It's the being true to the characters, being honorable about the approach to them. Um, I was born in Italy and moved here as a kid. My brothers have a different father. They were born in the United States, but they grew up partly in Italy. So those are all European white cultures, but from my whole life there was a sense of culture mixture, and I really liked it. It was a real key part of who we were and who I was, and I wanted that international feel because I felt like the international component of our family life was really great, and it gave me a view of the world that maybe was different if I had been born and raised in the town where I spent most of my childhood. Um, and I wanted kids from all over. As the frame books started getting translated into different languages, and I thought, wow, I should really think of all the kids who are going to read these books. I want them all to be able to see themselves. And so I early on decided I want the kids from all over the world. And not only that, I'm going to set the book in MI6 UK instead of CIA USA. Because I think as an event, we all love, don't we all, but I love James Bond, and there's a neat component of, that spydom with an accent, where if you talk about the CIA, if you live here, there's all the controversies maybe, or, I wanted to avoid politics and have it just be, so I got into who these kids were. I made kind of a promise to myself that I would only write about the things of them that were relevant in my life. So this concept of family forming, types of identity issues of who am I, but not who am I ethnically, but who am I as a young 14-year-old, right? The dynamics of character. And that I would really search out great people that I could talk to when I touched on areas I wasn't sure of, and ask them about it, So, and a lot of them are the writers. So there's Supriya Kelkar, who is a great writer. She's Desi. Her family's from India, which is not the same as Nepal, but there have been times when there have been questions about Kat's religion that I'll talk to her about, and actually she flatly told me, she goes, just don't write about that. Just take that out of the story. And she said, I don't doubt that you can write it well, but there's just no benefit to that. She goes, I get attacked by people because there are different sides to this, that when I write about my grandmother in India, I get attacked by people who said, well, but you're representing us, so look at that. Christina Diaz-Gonzalez is a dear friend of mine. She's Cuban American. She lives in Miami. And even though Brooklyn is Puerto Rican, which I really wanted, because I wanted to stress the fact that it's American, even though she's Puerto Rican. She and then they didn't put me in touch specifically with people sometimes who are specifically from where these people are from. So I try to be very careful, and I try to make sure that I do a ton of research, but I am constantly on looking after myself and telling my editor, we just have to make sure that we don't breach into things that are inauthentic or things that we shouldn't be the ones telling. So I'll give an example, which is Paris. So Paris in this book, in the books, Paris was a refugee from Africa living in Paris when he met Mother, and now he lives in Scotland. And there's a writer I know named Abir Mukherjee who writes these great mystery books. And Abir is an Indian family who grew up in Scotland and lives in London. And I was talking to Abir once, and Abir says, it's funny. He says, I don't belong anywhere. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, in London, they think I'm Scottish. In Scotland, they think I'm Indian. In India, they think I'm British. No one thinks I'm with them. And I'm all of those things. And I thought there's a real dynamic that I want to touch on with Paris. That Paris has an identity crisis of some sort because African, French, Scottish, but I don't want it to be about his specifically African identity and racial identity, because that's not for me to write about. So I'm not going to write about that part. But I do kind of understand this. Am I more French or more British or more whatever? And kind of like this core of like, how do you see yourself? I think we all know that. How do we see ourselves? So I have to find this one and be really careful. And then I have to have some sensitivity readers read what I've written and make sure I haven't inadvertently crossed the line. And then I have my editors read. And that's, I mean, it's a very long answer that probably didn't really answer your question. But I'm constantly trying to find this thing. And, you know, one day, hopefully, if it becomes a movie or a TV series, it'll be great, because then the cast will be, they will know all that stuff. And they will be of those places, and they will know. But it is a lot of research. It is a lot of caution. And it is remembering that mostly what I'm writing about are families on a family on an adventure trying to solve a mystery, and keeping to that, because that is, I think, the appropriate turf for me to write on.